like one polar bear was weird enough. Now there are potentially many polar bears.
Enough for it to be a pattern.
Oh my God.
Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching Lost, Season 1, Episode 9.
Solitary.
Is that about Rousseau?
Kind of all of it, because it's like Sayid is on a solitary quest. Rousseau is all by herself in the jungle. Nadia was in solitary confinement.
Okay.
So it's like a whole thing. Yeah.
Well, and the island is experiencing cabin fever.
Yeah.
So, this is a good episode. It's not a favorite of mine to rewatch.
No.
Because it's sort of, I think it's one of the ones where what's so exciting and interesting about it is the promise of plot and answers and exploration to come.
Yeah. Not all of which is...
There's varying levels of paying off.
Yeah.
We started this last night and we had been doing it all day and I was like, when we cut to Iraq, I was like, I don't know if I have this in me.
And then I had to go to the bathroom, and when I came out, he was like falling asleep.
I was like properly dozing.
We don't have to finish this, and so we put on Samantha Who instead.
But no, it's just like the political climate of the mid 2000s can be dreary.
Because this was also then reaching back to the early 90s. So
I was trying to make sense of it, and then I realized I don't think it does. I think it's generic kind of words that they're saying. I looked it up because I was curious if this was rooted in anything. And on Wikipedia, it said Sayid is torturing a Shiite prisoner, which I know that's a thing, suspected of bombing the party's headquarters. And so I think it's sort of like...
That's the problem is throughout history, too. It's all of the factions, I think, have paired with another one at one point in time.
And they've
so
meant
it's
different things.
The allegiances are very Byzantine.
So within the Iraqi political establishment, she's considered a rebel.
At this point in time, yes.
Okay. And she is or isn't?
I believe she is.
But she hasn't done the things they're accusing her of.
She maybe. I don't know.
Oh. Because it seems she really... I'm not built for warfare.
No.
And when she is reading off the list of things that have been done to her.
This is where they burned me with acid. They pierced my hands with a drill. Would you like to see the soles of my feet? Where they flayed the skin off?
I was like, I would have willed myself dead. So me.
The minute that somebody pulled out the vial of acid they were about to throw on me, I'd be like, whatever you need.
She's so noble. That it makes me feel like either she didn't do it or... I don't think she did the crimes they're accusing her of, but I think she is a rebel.
Potentially, yes. I also believe that she is just convinced of her own correctness.
And she's a childhood friend of Sayid's.
Yeah.
And so this is a real crucible for him, whether or not he's going to do his job.
Yeah,
it's
because
love or duty.
He seems to have no issue torturing people, which we've seen in the present day, and we see at the beginning of these flashbacks.
He has some issue. He feels bad about the Sawyer.
He feels bad about Sawyer, but that's only because the Sawyer thing happens after this. He doesn't feel bad about it until he almost kills him. Mm-hmm. Until he's until he cuts his artery, then he feels bad about it. He's ready to stab Sawyer way sooner than he does.
Think of this redneck. Want some more, me boy?
So, but I think the point is that he's never had to torture anybody he knows, and I think seeing Nadia so clear and strong in her convictions, he's like, well, if I'm gonna have to torture this person that I know who believes so deeply that she's right, maybe I'm the one that's wrong. Mm-hmm. And so it's he has to kind of come to terms with that.
Well, because he has this plan to help her escape, and of course there's a hiccup in the plan, and he does, and it kind of made me laugh because I was like, he does help her escape.
Yeah.
But not before implicating her in attacking him and murdering his superior.
Yeah.
So I was like, did you really help her out? Or because if she hadn't been committing these crimes, she has now. Do you know what I mean?
That's true.
I was sort of like, Sayid, buddy, what are you doing?
It's not perfectly thought out.
I remember not fully gelling with, and maybe it was the 2000s.
Yeah. Sayid's...
Not Sayid Nadia. I remember sort of being like, and especially considering where we start going, I was sort of like...
It's because I even still think, I'm going to say what I was going to say, which is that Sayid's flashbacks are, on the whole, I would rate them positively, but they have a pretty big fluctuation in, like, quality, if I'm remembering
and
correctly.
we have the Middle Eastern filter, and we have, like,
boy, does that fucking lens turn orange really quick.
And the wailing and all that stuff, which... we're at a place now where we understand that those are subtle,
questionable moments.
There's a word, and I can't think of insidious, or it very subtly, but it like reaffirms negative stereotypes and confirmation biases and stuff. However, for a show like this, where they are trying to do the most they possibly can, that kind of short. I mean, if you're trying to make Hawaii Iraq, that kind of shorthand is all you have.
You're right.
So I'm annoyed at the overuse of the trope.
Yeah.
But if I were ever going to forgive it, this is sort of...
That's true, too, because just like we talked about in the previous episode with Sawyer, it's like, this is such a really generalized, broad overview of who Sayid is as a person, where it's like, we have to hit, like, 4 major beats, which is that he doesn't mind torturing people, and he's good at it, because he's a communications officer, is what they keep calling him. He is up for a big promotion, being, presented with this figure from his childhood puts him at a crossroads, and then he goes the opposite direction that he was going by the end of it. And so it's like, there's no, like, minutia in here about, like, the individual things or whatever. It's just broad strokes to get him to where we know him to be. And then we flesh it out more in every subsequent.
I do want to give the show an iota of credibility for making him a interesting character, a nuanced character, a leading man.
Yeah.
In a time when...
Leading man. Talk about it.
But I'm saying in a time where we were shipping in, in any type of brown skin actor to play a terrorist and a cheap, like...
I'm pretty sure 24 was on at the same time as this as well.
Was.
And that was a real problem.
And so I want to give Lost credit there. And it's like, that's not to say that they don't also fall into some of the bullshit, but things are products of their time, and I don't know how to explain that to people sometimes.
So many people don't have any media literacy where they're like, well, this show is like, that thing that this show did is bad. And I'm like, could it perhaps be that the show is making a commentary on that as well? And if not, could it not be a product of its time and still worthy of discussion?
Well, and also of all the places that you can and should and do criticize the show, I want to give it credit for other places that this character, like Sun and Jin, which thankfully they had Daniel and Yunjin were able to sort of like shape it a little bit better.
100%.
But I not for nothing, I think the desire to break out of certain comfort zones.
Yeah.
I think it's admirable.
I also think not for nothing an
with mixed to good results.
Yeah. An interesting, if not underutilized portion of this episode is the fact that I think Sayid is coming to grips with the fact that his government might be just as corrupt as the rebels. Where I think he is like realizing in real time in this episode that he's like, oh shit, maybe we're doing the bad thing. But because he's doing a good job and he's being rewarded for it, it didn't occur to him till then.
But it's not him learning the ignorance and arrogance of his ways. He still is very proudly a Muslim Middle Eastern man.
100%.
And I think it's a little bit interesting looking at it in hindsight. I was gonna be like, we're talking a lot about this, and actually I don't mind.
No.
We have Danielle Rousseau on the game board.
Yeah.
I think she is one of the best, most interesting things the show does.
She's pretty cool.
I think it's Mira Furlan.
Yeah.
I think she is incredibly cast, and
Yeah.
she plays this so beautifully. She's so interesting. She's so compelling.
She's so weird.
And because we don't know.
Yeah.
Is she crazy?
Yeah.
And if so, how crazy?
But you loved him.
He was sick.
You killed them.
What would have happened if we were rescued? I couldn't let that happen. I won't.
Because she might just be a little bit crazy.
That's the other thing too, is that Sayid is on his like walkabout, his punishment isolation walkabout, and while he's like sitting on the beach, he notices a cable in the sand, and he picks it up. It goes into the ocean and it goes into the jungle, and so he follows it into the jungle, and he gets to a point where he sees a tripwire, and he steps over it. But in stepping over the tripwire, he steps straight into a trap. And so he gets strung up by his foot and then shot in the leg with an arrow as well.
No, it's like it's not an arrow. It's like a not a projectile, because that implies movement. It's just a jagged.
Oh.
It's just there.
Oh.
Because he goes
okay.
flying into it. And that's why I was like, ah!
Okay. Yeah. Regardless, that is a trap laid by Rousseau. And when he wakes up, he is tied to a bed with electrodes on him somewhere. Shocking him, and she keeps asking, where is Alex? Which is important.
And so we get it's just very, there's so many places that your mind can go, and our minds did go watching this show in real time. And the notion of being stranded on an island is scary. The notion of being stranded on an island alone is scary. The notion of being stranded on an island alone for 16 years. There's just layers,
so many layers
to it. And she starts layering things in that she was with other people, and we even come to find out they're friends and family, and they were on a scientific mission. And it's sort of, because that adds to the fear where it's like, if you're a scientist or a doctor, there's an implication of being able, like
being knowledgeable
and being above a very mortal peril. It's like, well, I'm a scientist. I can think my way out of this, you know?
Also, she says one of the scariest lines on this show almost ever, which they hear something in the jungle, and she rushes to start getting ready to leave. And she says,
If we're lucky, it's one of the bears.
If we're lucky.
and you're like, what? What if we're unlucky? Because I would feel pretty unlucky if it were a polar bear. Also, it implies that
that just raises further questions about things that happen in season 3.
Oh, yeah.
That polar bears were running roughshod over this island.
Because like one polar bear was weird enough. Now there are potentially many polar
enough
bears.
for it to be a pattern.
Oh my god.
It's very funny. But there was potentially a disease that was infecting people, and we find that out later in the episode, that because she's like, the disease killed them, but then we find out she killed them because they had the disease.
Well, she killed at least Robert. But I don't know how many others.
It's very good. It's very interesting. We get the first mention of the others, and apparently they whisper.
I want to shout out Monique. I don't know if she's watching these, but there was a TV show that she loved called The Whispers. And every time I hear it, I think of that.
Potential mild spoilers for this season, next season, but isn't that the whispers, the other whispering, isn't that nothing? Doesn't that amount to nothing?
I think it amounts to mostly nothing, because
I think it's really scary in the moment, and then when we actually when we come face to face with the conclusion of that plot, isn't it another one of those like, oh, they were whispering?
Yeah, I don't think it's like
it feels more ominous than it is.
And especially because in this moment, you all are also supposed to be like, well, she just seems crazy, so maybe it's just that she's crazy because she's.
But we do end with Sayid hearing them.
Yeah.
But again, we're trying to not spoil things in case you're watching this for the first time with us. However, there will be mild kind of tonal or
But also, as you can tell, we don't remember a lot about this show.
I think it amounts to people just...
Yeah, I think you're right.
Which is kind of hilarious in its own right, that there's so many things in this show where we're like, what could that mean? And it's like, what it is.
So that's the other thing, too, where you were like, oh my God, why is there a polar bear? And it's like, turns out because there's a polar bear. And so it's like, there's a lot of things that come up in this show where you're like, oh my God, what are the whispers? And it's just like, there were people whispering in the woods. And you're like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Just they talk.
Yeah.
We didn't need to do that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, Walt is being neglected.
Yeah, Walt was being neglected and still is twice because Hurley comes up with this bright idea to I feel like we came at this from the wrong angle.
Okay.
But
the beginning of this episode starts with a guy named Sullivan. Jack is treating him for like a rash on his back. He's freaking out. He's like, that's really bad, right? And Jack is like, it's hives. Try to relax. Like, you're just stressed out. Try to relax. And so Hurley's answer is like, well, that's dumb. What else does he have to think about? There's nothing else to do. And so Ethan shows up and he has found another bag and Hurley's like, dope, let me see if I can use anything. And then we don't see it, but Hurley is like, oh my God. And
this is why I said Walt was like abandoned twice, because he's bored and Michael's like,
but there's nothing to do around.
Well, you gotta figure out stuff to do, know what I'm saying? You gotta find a way to entertain yourself.
Come on.
find something to do. It's part of life. And so that is part of what gives Hurley this idea, which it's something that I kind of love in life, period. And then I love that this show does take times to explore it. And it's that thing that it's like, we need as humans, it's so actually important to take time to have fun. Yeah. Otherwise, there is no point in life.
It's like the, I don't know what you would like, the Martian quotient. Because it's like that they needed Matt Damon's character to like, because he was like a botanist, but he was there for moral support. And
but
like,
also,
you need someone there that's going to keep things light.
It's so important that it quite literally is on the first page of the Bible that like on the seventh day God rested. It's like, if you don't have a moment to actually sit down and appreciate things, then there is no point in life. Yeah. And it's a hard but necessary balance, because it's not important work in the sense that we need food to eat, we need shelter from the elements, yada, yada. But we cannot do these things if there's no point in living. And so it's sort of like how art is like the single most and least important thing in culture, because it's like it's like when people are like, it's frivolous, it's not medicine or science, but also if people never experience joy, then what's the point of medicine or science?
When people are like, oh, I don't own a TV, and I'm like, what do you look at every night?
What's all your furniture pointed at? So anyways, Hurley decides to make a golf course, and it's fun. It's nice. We get to see the characters have fun, and we, the audience, get to experience the beauty of Hawaii, this island.
Beautiful.
Man, you're the...
Dude, I think you stuck it.
Lucky.
This thing have a ladies' tea?
Hey, when'd you show up?
A while ago. I almost didn't recognize you. You're smiling.
Have to watch that.
Also, Michael is trying to do something productive as well. He is trying to build like an aqueduct into like cisterns.
And doing a good job to separate the water so they're not polluting their water source.
He was like, if we take one like of these little waterfalls and direct it over here, we can have showers, and then we're not contaminating the water supply when we wash. It's just cool. It's pretty smart and cool. I like the thing that I chafe at the most, which because Walt is being neglected. I don't mind Michael being like, you need to find something to do.
You left me alone at the caves.
What? I left you with Claire.
She's sleeping.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I just got caught up. Hey, you wanna play?
Nah. There's lots of people waiting.
Oh, no, don't worry about it. They won't mind. You want to take a swing?
Hey, Michael, it's your shot. You're up.
Oh, okay, cool. So we'll play later, okay?
No, he literally is like, if you want to take a turn, I don't think anybody will be mad about it if you just want to do it. But then when Walt is like, no, other people are waiting, Michael does not continue paying attention to him, and he just wanders off into the forest and just luckily happens upon Locke.
Who is presumably just been doing this all day long.
Throwing a knife into a tree?
Yeah. I can't with Locke. And he has his moments, but it's just like...
With the direct opposition to the golf, it seems.
We also have, notably, the first interaction between Boone and Shannon that is not absolutely steeped in hostility.
Yeah.
Because it's like... But this is the part where I'm like, if they made her funny, because he's like...
You're never gonna believe this.
You finally learned how to tie your own shoes.
Funny.
That's funny. Like, that works.
It is funny. This whole exchange, it's not just the two of them. There's like 4 people total involved. It's written, it's performed well. It's not written amazingly. And like Kate is still doing this thing.
Oh yeah, because Jack is playing golf.
Okay, because the actual, we have done a really bad job. The actual opening of this episode is Jack is like redoing Sawyer's bandages, and he just gets all fed up and he's like, fine, do your own bandages, but not before Sawyer like really needles at him and is like, well, Kate likes me. It's like, first of all, you have no proof for that, you're just being a dick about it. So later Kate overhears them talking about how Jack is playing golf, and she's like, Jack is playing golf? I doubt it. And I'm like, who are you? Like, again, it's been like maybe 10 days you've been on this island. You don't know anything about
I'll believe it when I see it.
100%. It's so crazy. And then Sawyer is like, still being a smartass, and he's like, oh yeah, doctor playing golf.
Whew, boy, howdy. I've heard everything. What's next? Cop eating a donut.
I'd pay to see that, because what else do they do? And so it's like a whole thing. And I do really love, though, that also becomes an interaction that's not steeped in hostility, because Sawyer does manage to get there to where they've like made this 3-hole golf course, and he bets against Jack, which kind of makes everybody pause, but he's like presenting it in a way that he's like, eh? And then Kate takes
Get it? Because I'm the bad guy?
Well, but then Kate...
It was knowing. No, it was self-aware.
Exactly. And so Kate takes the bet against him, and then everybody's like, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, he smiles. It seems like we've taken a real step forward with Sawyer.
Mention that the color blue was invented in the previous episode for the shirt because the gods were so inspired by his eyes that they poured forth onto...
Sawyer's eyes are not blue.
Are you sure?
Yeah. He's got like greenish hazel eyes.
Regardless.
Yeah. That color blue
The gods were so inspired by Ian Somerhalder's eyes
that they put it on Josh Holloway.
They took they're working with what they got and they're putting things together. It just because he just sort of like prowls around in this like blue t-shirt that's like somehow tight and baggy. It's spectacular.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Anyways.
Amazing. That then is mostly it. They like Charlie and Hurley, this is when their friendship starts pretty significantly. It's very cute. I think that what Hurley is doing is like important and smart of them to do as a show.
Well, you already referred to him once as the jester, and it's like, I mean, it's not important in the way that a doctor is important, but it's part of a society.
Yeah.
It's part of a...
You need that
and
kind
it's something
of stuff.
he can do.
And I also like that we have very subtly put Hurley in a position of relative power, where like he is helpful to Jack. He's like always there around when Jack needs somebody to do something, and he has seemingly become the person that people bring things to. Like he sorts through.
Well, he has leadership qualities.
Goods. Yeah.
And
I don't know. I really like it. We also didn't mention in the previous episode that Charlie kind of fat shamed him. he was like, you must be hoarding food. And Hurley's like, I lost a belt loop, dude.
Again, 8 days.
Yeah.
That was another. Sometimes you have to make concessions in order for TV shows to just happen.
Of course.
Because don't they, again, mild spoilers for things to come, but don't they kind of just ship Walt off at one point because the actor was getting too old?
Yes.
And I would just sort of rather deal with the incongruities that he's older than he should have been versus just having a human disappear.
I mean, I do think there's like reason enough.
Sure, no, I understand, but it was like that. We wasted so much time in the 2000s discussing whether or not we were going to recast the Harry Potter kids because they're not going to look 14, and I was like, I don't.
That's the,
and I'm a
vocal
vocal proponent for recasting if need be.
Yeah,
but it's just sort of because I remember everybody or the detractors of the show because the show got so popular so quickly that of course you're going to get the contrarians and they're like, how is the fat guy still fat? And it was like, don't take this from us.
Yeah.
We're enjoying this thing. And also they do end up kind of coming up with ways.
They absolutely explained it. Because I remember it wasn't like a huge problem for me, but it was like a little bit of a problem for me. I was like, the show seems weird. I was like, how long are they trapped on this island? Like you're only eating fruit and fish and like maybe the wild boar, but it's like, he would have lost weight. And like, not only do we find out that like every episode is essentially like a day, but there's then even more on top of that to come. So, I don't know. I think I super changed my tune after I actually watched it.
I think that's about it. We went for a minute with this one, didn't we?
We did, yeah. Josh Holloway's eyes are green. I've been looking for it since we talked about that.
Maybe it's all the blue.
There's so much blue everywhere, and you would think, given the rest of his coloring, that his eyes would be blue, but they are a very lovely shade of green.
I remember
that shirt.
The shirt was striking.
Yeah.
And the blonde hair, blue and blonde.
That's what I mean. Yeah, the rest of his coloring would suggest, but no, they're greenish. They're a little more hazel than green, but he's so cute.
Okay.
Bye.